beautiful people, Monozumi here, and today I'm back with a tutorial. There's not too much for me to say here, so let's just get into the tutorial. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to show you the brushes that I use, and I'm going to show you their function. By the way, I am doing this live, which is it's a little horrifying because, as you might have noticed, I am a potato, and I'm afraid of derping up, but please bear with me. I will be doing my best. Anyway, before I start rambling. So, um, the brush that I use for coloring is this watercolor brush. I call it the text water brush, or just the watercolor brush. So pause the video right now and copy these settings here on the side in order to make this brush. Unfortunately, this is a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't know if this technique or any of these brushes are able to be made or used in any other art program. I exclusively use Sai to color and to draw. I do own Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint, but I don't really use them too much. Pretty much I only use them for like After Effects and stuff, so I apologize. For this tutorial, you are going to need Paint Tool Sai. I recommend it. It's a really good program. It's like $50, and I've been using it for like 10 years, and it's pretty good. Anyway, so before I start rambling, first brush you need is the texture watercolor brush. The texture watercolor brush, it is a transparent brush to where it pretty much takes it's like a pretty light brush, as you can see. With this brush, you can overlay it on top of other colors. So let's say I switch to this one. You see this brush is transparent. The only way you're going to get this brush to really have any type of like opaqueness to it is if you like go over it like a lot of times. That transparency of this brush is really key into achieving the effect that I get with my artwork. The next brush you're going to need is this water brush. I have two different types of water brushes. This one right here, this is the plain water brush, is a newer brush. It is made for blending. See, it blends out really, really nicely. So once again, I'm gonna have you pause the video here and look at the settings I have here and copy them on your own side. Another brush that we have for blending is just it's the second water brush. This one, it blends out, but with a flat bristle brush to get this effect. I don't use this brush a lot, but I want you to make it because I do use it a bit. So I do think it's important to have it in your little toolbox just in case. It's really good for blending big chunks of color together. Alrighty, and then the next brush we're going to need is the regular airbrush. So the airbrush comes already with Sai, but I did change my airbrush a bit from the default settings. So you won't have to make an airbrush brush, but you're going to have to change the settings of the brush to mimic mine here on the side. And then last but not least, the most important brush is my push brush. So this brush, it doesn't actually have any color. See, I'm pushing down. You can see it gives out a little bit of color, just a tiny bit. But what I use this for is to push shadows around. It's like this pushes, basically it is what it says. It's a push brush. It pushes color around. I use this for shadows in my really weird way of shading. This is the brush that I use. I will explain it better when I get into coloring the actual character. And oh, I said this is the last brush. I lied. You're also going to need this brush. This is the brush I use for my line art. It is a jagged brush. If you get closer, you see it has these jagged lines. It's not smooth because it has a bit of a paper texture on it. So you can also pause the video and make this brush. Alrighty. And I will be taking, if anyone is confused about any of these brush settings, I will have a place where you can download my brush settings and my skin palette in the description of the video. So if you don't want to pause the video and like look at it, like look at the brushes, you can just go into, I'll probably put it up on like Google Drive or like DeviantArt or something, and you could go and download it and try it for yourself. Okay. So let's see. Basically, I drew this character. She doesn't have a name. She's just a random character that I drew for this tutorial. We're going to be doing a few different skin tones this time around. I have over here, prepare yourselves because this is going to be a bit of a mess. I will make a nicer one for you guys to use. That will be in the description. So basically, this is my skin palette. These are the colors that I mixed together to make different skin tones. We're going to be using this for this tutorial. I will go through and explain all of this as I know it looks like a jumbled mess, but I wanted to show you guys what I use normally. Like I said, I will make a nicer version of this for you guys because I know this is kind of a hot mess. So let's get on to coloring the skin. So you're going to have to set up your folder in a certain way. So first, you make a folder. You're going to make a new layer inside that folder. What you're going to do on this layer, you're going to get a red color. This is a bright red color. And you're going to basically just color in the area that you're going to be coloring. So this is a skin tutorial. We're going to be focusing on coloring the skin. I usually use a red color because it's easier to see if I got like all of the if I'm like not missing any lines or anything, like any white spaces. What you're going to want to do too a lot while you're doing this is lowering the opacity on the line art so you can really see what you're coloring in. If you want, you can like go and be precise with the lines and everything. Usually because I'll put the hair layer on top of the skin layer. I don't really worry too much about like coloring over the hair because I'll just go over it later. Alright, so let's see. Go and color in all this whole area. Alright, and fill that in. And we'll do her hands too. I'm using like shortcuts. They're like the same like standard shortcuts that are present in like every art program, so I'm not gonna really explain what I'm doing too much with that. Pretty much, you hit E, erases, that's pretty much that's all to that. But I mean, that's pretty much with like any art program. If you toggle E, it'll erase it, Also, don't worry too much about staying in the lines. It doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. As long as it's close enough, I'm satisfied. Alrighty then, fill that in. And see, this is why I choose red, because it's really easy to see any areas you might have missed. Let's color those in. Alrighty. Okay. So this is going to be the first layer. So I will try and this up so you can see it better. So for me, I always have this first layer, which is red. Then we're going to make a new layer on top of it and clip it. We're going to get white. On my shortcuts, my Q button, it is like the color dropper tool, so I just selected the background. Then we're going to take white and we're going to fill in this new layer with white. Then we're going to make another layer and clip it. So I'll name this for you. So this is going to be red layer. This white layer is white base layer. Oop, I can spell layer. And then this layer right here is going to be color layer 1. Alrighty. So then, in order to get the fancy texture, you go up to all these fancy effects up here. So we're going to hit watercolor B. I usually go for, so with paler skin tones, I usually have this scale a little bit higher. I usually put it at like 104, and then for the intensity, I put it up to 37. With darker skin tones, these settings are going to be a little bit different, but I'll show you those as well. Then we are going to go over here to our folder, and we're going to make a layer above it. We're going to clip that layer. This is going to be shadow layer. And when I'm coloring skin, I like to do the shadows first. It kind of helps me know where I'm going to put all of my like fancy ambient colors, because I like to throw in all kinds of weird colors into my artwork. So we have to prepare this layer first for coloring. So, what we're going to do, you're going to go up to paper texture. You're going to hit watercolor A this time. You're going to put the intensity over at 37 again, and then scale. It depends. This changes a lot because depending on the size of your canvas, will kind of change up how this texture looks. So you kind of have to mess around with it a little bit to just kind of to get what you like, depending on the canvas size you're using. Usually I use a canvas that is like 5,000 by 5,000. So these are the settings I usually use when I'm using that size canvas. A bigger canvas, you might need to tweak this texture setting. Same thing with the smaller canvas. Next, we're going to go to water fringe. You're going to go to width. You're going to hit 2. You go to intensity. You're going to go all the way down to 60. And then you hit mode. You're going to go to shade. So this creates a shade, like a shadow layer. It basically takes a, let me see if I can, I'll just do a little demonstration. So let's see, let me put down some red. Right, this is just a regular layer with red on it. We'll make another layer on top of it, and if I have the same red and I overlay it, no difference, right? If you were to take that layer and change it to a shade layer, you see what it does? It makes this darker when you overlay it on top of something else. Isn't that cool? Alright, let me get rid of that. So for this first version of this character, we're gonna color her with a like a pale skin tone. It's gonna be this one up here. Let me set up my canvas so I can have these side by side. Alrighty, let's see. This one right here. And then we'll stick you over here. And there we go. Alrighty. So, when I am coloring pale skin characters, for the shadow colors, I usually use a light brown. It's really small on here, but I'll make it bigger for you guys when I make the version for you guys. But it's this brown color right here. So we're gonna select this brown color. Oop. And we are going to use the pen tool. My pen tool is pretty much the basic pen tool. I added a bit of paper texture to it, but it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, you can add the paper texture to it if you want. I pretty much only have it on there because I like the way it looks like when I'm sketching with it, but it really doesn't make much difference to this process at all. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to add the shadows. And do you see what that water fringe does to it? Like, look, it makes this bit of like a color halo around it. So if I take off the water fringe, you see how it just takes away that like little reservoir of color. Put that back on there. See? So basically what I'm doing shadows, these don't have to be perfect, so I'm gonna blend them out later. I will just basically just like, I won't fill in the shadow, I'll just like draw in the shape of the shadow. Later I will blend these out using the push brush. We're just gonna go everywhere where there's gonna be some shadows. And like on the version for you guys, I'm gonna go and I'll like label everything so it'll make more sense. For lips, I usually just like will draw the top lip and fill the rest of it in with color. Let's see, shadow for the bottom lip. Neck shading. I'll do all of this in color. Since I'm just gonna block this all in color, I'll usually just scribble the area and I'll blend this out. Alrighty, we'll have some shadows on the fingers. Finger shadows. Alrighty. That works. Oh, almost forgot. And then for like the shadow on the eyes, I use this like purpley gray color. This color is important because I use this color a lot when it comes to shading hair and shading clothing. I'll add that on your guys' version as well. It's not too important for skin because I use this mostly just for like the eyes when it comes to pale skin. When it comes to darker skin tones, this color I will use it to shade. But you know, we'll get there. I'll explain more when we get to the darker skin characters. Alrighty. So we'll just have, that's basically what it's gonna look like when you're done. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go to our fancy push brush. And we are going to blend these out. So I will go into this like bit of color and I will like bring it outwards like this. I do this because it makes like a gradient and I like the way that it looks. for the eyes, you have to make sure when you're doing this part that you push it all the way past the top lid of your drawing. It's important. It's really important for how it looks later, because when you start to add the colors, if you don't push it all the way to the top, there's gonna be like a weird space where there's no color showing. So you're gonna have to make sure you push it all the way. Oop, a little too much there. All the way to the top, past the top lid, like that. Alrighty, let's go finish blending these out. I find myself turning the canvas a lot because it helps me color when there's certain, I don't know, there's like certain areas where I feel like if you just turn the canvas, it just kind of helps you color the area better. I don't know if anyone else is like that. I mean, I find this to be true, but I don't know if anybody else does this with their artwork. Alrighty then, over here, gonna blend out the shadows on her fingers. Didn't mean to push it back that way, so let's erase that. Alrighty, and then I'm gonna blend this all out. Cool thing about this push brush is you can push it out and make even more shadows other places. Like if I wanted to put more shadow here, I can just take some of the color here and push it over here. You're probably sitting there thinking, Manu, isn't there an easier way to do this? You know, probably there is, but I mean, this this is the way that I figured it out, and this is the way I know how to do it, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Alrighty, that's pretty good. Alrighty, and that's where we're going to leave the shadows for now. Oop, I just want to fix this one a little bit. It's a little uneven. This is where we're going to leave the shadows for now. We are going to come back and do more shadows later, but this is basically what I work with when I start when I start coloring. So we're going to have to go back over to the color palette. Like I said, first we're doing this one right here. So we're going to open up our folder. We're going to go to the color layer. And we're going to grab this blue. We're going to go up to our texture watercolor brush. And basically when I am coloring, I like to add in a bunch of different colors to my artwork. Blue is a big one. I like to add blue and yellow literally everywhere. I like to add blue to the shadows. The reason why I do the shadows first is because it does help me figure out where I'm going to be putting the blue. So usually areas with a lot of blue, I'll stick shadows in there. So I'm going to put some over here where her hand is, right here under her neck, some in her ear, and then maybe a little bit in her like hair shadows. I always add a bit of blue or whatever your ambient color is going to be. As you can see over here, the ambient color for the skin. I keep saying ambient, or it can. I always to say the word ambient color, but I mean it could also be considered like maybe like an undertone or whatever. Anyway, it's gonna change depending on the skin tone that you're going to be using. Anyway, back to this one. So we are going to do color right in the face. Right in the face. We're gonna put the color right in the middle of their face. I do this with all of my color mixes for all skin tones. I always put the ambient color right in the middle of the face. Next is going to be the blush color. So I usually put blush like on the cheeks, up near the eyes, on the mouth. It's okay if you go over the mouth too. I mean, because you can blend it in. I usually put it on tips of ears, tips of fingers. I will also put this on like shoulders and like toes and knees as well. But you know, it's just as this picture is only like half of her. This is what you're gonna get. And now that we start to add some color, you're really gonna start to see the texture. And what I can see from this texture is that the scale is too big. So the scale is basically, let me zoom in so you see what I'm talking about. How big the textures, like how big the dots of the texture are gonna look like. So if I increase the scale, you see the dots get bigger. If I decrease it, they get smaller. I don't like how it looks like at 104. Like I said, normally I use 104, but it also depends on the size of the drawing. I don't really like it too much for this one right now, so I'm gonna decrease it a little bit to 73. If I change it, I will let you know, because sometimes I will change the scale multiple times while I'm doing artwork. Anyway, enough of rambling. Go back to the color layer, and we're going to get this color right here. This is the dark part of the skin tone. With this, I will usually put this on the bottom of the face. And then I'll put it on the sides like this. I'll like always leave this pretty bare from it. Like I won't put this in the middle of the face, usually just around the face. Put some over here, a little bit on the ear, and some on the hand. Then we're going to go to the lightest color right here. Select that. And we're going to use the light color to blend this all together. So for this, I usually just use really light strokes. And we're just going to blend this all together. Blend that blue into her face. So fun fact, I tried to write a script for this, and I attempted to record this using the script, and despite using a script, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't able to get my words right. So I figured I would try to do this in real time, despite knowing the fact that I am a potato and I'm going to mess up my words, but you know, it is what it is. Alrighty, blending that out over here. Blend this blue out. Alrighty, and that is the first blend of colors. So the reason, let me show you real quick the reason why we put this white layer here. So if I take away the white layer, you can see all the red for the red layer under it. A lot of the times when I'm coloring, I will add in colors under these layers, like instead of putting white, if I use, I don't know, let's say this yellow, see the yellow through it? I usually do that a lot, like I'll use this effect here when I'm coloring like clothes and hair. But for the skin, especially for like the pale skin characters, you're just gonna be using a white. Okay, so for the first color mix, you can either leave it like this if you want the character to be really pale, or if you want the color, or if you want the character to have like a bit of a darker tone than this, you can copy and paste this layer. So we're gonna select all, copy, paste. We're gonna clip that, and we're gonna change this to color 2. With this layer, what we're going to do is we're gonna go up here to multiply. Multiply works a lot like the shade layer, except the multiply isn't as dark. So it works good for when you want to make your colors darker, but not like hella dark, just like slightly dark, if that makes any sense. So we're gonna hit multiply, and you see, instantly it gets a bit darker. I don't want it to be this dark, so I'm going to lower the opacity. About here is fine, I think. And you can really see the blue in there when you do that. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna blend these colors together better. To do that, we're gonna go to our trusty watercolor brush. You're gonna take the light color, make sure you have it selected on the light color that you use for blending. Because while this brush is for blending, it does put down a bit of color, so you want to make sure that you don't have like a random weird color when you're blending. And we're just gonna blend these parts better. I know the blue doesn't look like a lot now, but you'll really see the effect of it later on with some other stuff we're gonna do. Alrighty. So here is the basic color. You can stop here if you want. This is the easy way to do it. I do go ahead and add a few more things, but like this is the basic way to color. So if you want to stop here, that's cool. If you want to see what else I do to it, stay tuned. So next we're going to add more blush to this. So we're going to make a new layer, flip that, name it blush. We'll go over to the blush layer over here. Gonna get the airbrush this time. Zoom in. And we're gonna change this color, we're gonna change this layer into a multiply layer. And gonna put some blush on those cheeks. That's another thing that I'm saying. Yeah, the scale is still too big on this for me when it comes to this size drawing, so let me change the scale a bit. Maybe the intensity a bit too. There we go. So I changed the scale down to 50. That looks better. Okay, we'll go back to our blush layer. So we're gonna add that on the cheeks, a little bit more on the eyes. Looks like on the eyelids right here, on the nose, and on the mouth. And I put this literally on all of my drawings. Doesn't matter if they're like male or female. I'll put this blush on everybody. So we're gonna go up here to our water brush. And we're gonna blend it out. So you can either blend it out a few different ways. You can use this water brush 1 to do it, water brush 2 to do it, or you can also use this watercolor brush. This is a default brush that comes with Sai. I used it like when I first got Sai, I used it a lot. Then I stopped using it for a long time, and recently I've gotten back to using it again. I believe my watercolor brush is the default one. Actually, let me go check, because it should go, if I hit version 1. Version 1 has these are all the basic brushes that you get with the first version of Sai. Sai version 2 comes with more brushes, but this is the basic kit that you get when you get like the first Sai. And pretty much my watercolor brush is the same as brushes that defaults, but these are my imported brushes from my old Sai. So we'll use the watercolor brush for this, and just blend out and blend out, blend that out and blend that out. Then we'll use, let's see, we're going to lower the opacity of that a little bit. Beautiful. Next, make a new layer. I'm gonna name this eye whites or whatever. I don't actually know what they're called, but it's the white part around like your eye and stuff. So we'll hit, so it doesn't matter what brush you use for this. You can use the pencil brush, you can use the brush tool. My brush tool is just the default brush tool, so you don't have to really change anything for that. You can just use the default brush. And we're going to add in the white of the eyes. Oop! Made a mistake. Just did a bad thing. I regret the thing I did. Okay. Alrighty, and oop, no. So pointy, get rid of the little point. Oop, there's a bit of, it's an area that I forgot to blend in. There we go. Okay, so we go up to the eye whites, and we're going to lower the opacity on them. Usually for pale skin characters, I will change the opacity to about anywhere from 54 to 50. For darker skin characters, I usually will change it to anywhere from 45 to 40. So we're gonna, 54 looks good, so we'll keep it at that. Oh, looks like a little bit out of the, oh no, that's that's nothing. Okay. Alrighty, and then we're going to make another layer over here where the shadow layer is, on top of the folder. Make a new layer, clip it, go up to fringe, hit 2 on the width, 60 on the intensity, up here, watercolor A, what did I use, what effect? So it was 36 for intensity, oop, 36. And then, was it 77? So with this a lot, like I said before, the scale and intensity for me is different on every artwork I do. It's just gonna depend on pretty much your own preference. For this one, this 36 and 77 look nice for this particular artwork, so that's what we're going to go with. Anyway, so we're gonna change this to make this shadow 2, and go to mode and shade. Alrighty, and this is where the second layer of shadows is going to come into play. So we're going to go back to the brown that we used. Gonna go to our watercolor brush And for this, I usually add it in areas that I just want there to be some extra shadow, usually around the face, here on top right here, do some right here and right here. And that looks weird, right? Big old blobs of color. So, let me do another demonstration. Sai has an interesting effect to where you can change a function of a brush from putting down color to taking it away. So here is, my watercolor texture brush. If I go up to this little box right here, it's going to change the effect of the brush. So instead of putting it down, it's going to strip the color away, as you can see. This is the same for every brush. So like if I go to, pencil brush, without it, regular brush. With it, takes away. Alrighty. So the reason I'm showing you this is I use this a lot for shading as well. I will put down a color and then I will strip some of it away to get the effect that I want. So we're gonna go back down to the shadow 2 layer, and we're going to use the texture brush on the stripping effect, and we're just gonna blend this out. Blend out by taking away some of the color. Alrighty. Then we'll go back down to the first shadow layer, and then as you can see the brown has a darker brown next to it. I'm going to get the pencil tool, make that smaller, and then we're just gonna go into like smaller areas and add some more shading to make it look more interesting. These ones I don't ever really blend out, I just stick them in like teeny tiny corners and stuff. Oh look, I forgot an area to shade. That's easy fix. Let's go to the push brush and we'll take some of the color from this color reservoir and push it over here. It's a cool thing that the push brush can do. Alrighty. Let's see, I want some color over here. And in the corners of her neck shadow. And we'll put some and I'm zooming in, I'm seeing that there's areas I missed. See me missing all these little baby areas? Okay. Let's resume putting in these little extra little shadows. So I don't do this too much. Alrighty. Blend it out a little bit more. Already. You can see the difference it makes. So, next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go down to these. We're gonna go down to these. We're gonna go down to this first shadow layer. We're gonna select all, copy, and paste. This one is going to be the ambient shadow. Did I spell that right? I don't know. You know what I mean. Ambient shadow layer. So we're gonna take this layer that we just made and move it under the shadow layer. As you can see, because my brushes is transparent, if you add a color under there, you see what it does to it? Gives it like a cool effect. Anyway, I don't want the eyes to get it though, so I'm gonna erase it on the ambient layer. Then we're going to get a dark blue, like a dark navy blue, like a really dark blue. We're going to lock this layer and I'm gonna color the layer blue. Fancy. Then we're gonna go up to here and we're gonna change it to an overlay layer. Really makes the colors pop when you do that. So now I usually, after this is pretty much done here, what I do now is I will mess around with the opacity of the shadows, because like the shadows right now are way too dark for, you know, what I usually like. So I'll mess around with the opacity just to get, pretty much just get it where I like it. So let's see. Oh, that's nice. I like that. It's really nice and soft. That's gonna be about at 55. Then we're gonna move those other shadows down at 56. That's nice. Well, doing that showed me some areas that I didn't color all that well. We'll go back down to the color layer and get the water brush. Select the light color and blend, 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 blend. Alrighty. It's beautiful. And that's basically all I do for the skin. Nothing crazy fancy. The next thing that we'd have to do would be like line art. I'll show you that real quick before I go on to another color mix. So for the line art, I use like a dark brown color. And then I go to my line brush. So for this, let me make it full screen. You're gonna want to go to the line art layer and turn the opacity way down so you can see what you're doing. And like I said, me doing that keeps showing me areas where I missed the color. Which, I mean, that's nothing new. I do this, it happens to me a lot. I'll miss areas where there will be like no color, or like the color will be really light. No big deal. Just go back to your first color layer and put, you know, use the water brush to fix in those areas where there's no color. Cool. Okay. Close that folder up. Make a new layer on top of everything. This is going to be line art. Guys, get the line brush. We're gonna go to mode and shade. The reason why I use the shade layer for line art is because, let me see, we'll go on a normal layer. So with a normal layer, if I do it right here, make this a little bit smaller. Get rid of that. Oop, wrong color. When doing line art, because it is something I loathe, I will just clip my line art layer to my color layer. By doing that, it makes sure that the color stays in the area of the area, like the area that you colored. So like if I unclip it, you can see it leaves the area of the skin. But clip it, there we go. So you can really see my the jagged edge that I was talking about with my line art brush when I do like this. Alrighty, and then we're gonna add in some right here. this is what it looks like without the shade mode, like blend mode on it. And then what I like to do though is I've changed it to shade. You see it takes on the color that's under it and it makes it pop. A lot of the times though, I'm gonna lower the opacity of this because it is pretty dark right now. And we're just going to line our drawing. Because I hate line art, I make sure to line art after I finish a step. So like when I finish the skin, I outline the skin. When I finish the hair, I outline the hair. So, and then you know, so on and so forth. Like clothes, blah blah blah. Finish clothes, outline clothes. You know. Nostril here and a nostril there. And smile here and smile there. Completely random, but recently I've been thinking about streaming. If I start streaming, would anybody come and watch? I don't know, like, I have everything set up to stream on Twitch. And I did do a few test streams a while ago. Then like I ended up moving and I just never got back to doing it. I would like to try and stream on YouTube though. I gotta figure that out though, because I only have everything set up for Twitch right now. Also, side note, you're not gonna worry about the eyes. Eyes is a completely different like step. They have their own little thing that I do. I don't think I'm gonna have a tutorial specifically on eyes because honestly the way that I do eyes is very, very simple. There's not much to show. It'd be like 2 seconds. You can do whatever eyes you want. If anyone's interested, I could do an eye coloring tutorial. To be honest though, if I were to do it, I wouldn't cover the way that I do eyes because like I said, it's really, really simple. I would probably just do like ways I've colored eyes in like the past, or maybe showing you how to color anime eyes from different franchises. Like, oh, you want to color an eye like, I don't know, something you would see in My Hero Academia. Or, oh, hey, I want to color eyes like they do in Fruits Basket, or, you know, whatever. Stuff like that. I can show you how to do that. I also have an idea for, because the next tutorial that would come after this one would be how to color hair, and then like the final one would be clothes. But after that, I'm thinking about doing a tutorial specifically for how to color, like, I don't know how to say this, like moe style, I guess. Like, there's a specific way that you see a lot of like moe art is colored. I used to color that way because I used to like specifically, her finger's kind of big, I'll fix that later. I used to like specifically draw like really cutesy like moe anime girls, and I still have the palette for it, the color palette for it, so I thought about maybe making a video on that, just in case for people who don't like the whole watercolor thing I'm doing, or like who don't like all this texture that I'm adding in. It's like an alternative. I also want to do a coloring tutorial for shade coloring, like shade coloring for cell shading. Um, Cell shading, if you don't know, is like the coloring you'll see in a lot of anime. It can also be used to just like color your artwork normally. I do like it because it is a really quick, easy way to color. Um, you'll see this. You'll see in a lot of webtoons. Like, I literally can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's a style you see everywhere. Mostly, like I said, in anime. Her nails, and then let me fix this part of her finger before I forget. So, in order to fix it, just if you're curious, you'll go down to the red layer, like the very first layer you made, and you'll get your eraser tool and just erase. Cool beans. I go up to line art layer, and we're going to lower the opacity on that. About 50 is good. You can make it lower too, like more. You can lower it more if you want. 50 looks nice. Alrighty, and that's all there is for this one. Next, I'm going to show you how to do more of a yellowish skin tone. Okay, to be honest, I didn't realize that this video was as long as it is. So, I'm actually going to be splitting it into a part 2. So check back next week for the second part of this video where I will go over more of the skin tones. All of my tools are in the description. I will also be putting up my skin palette in the description, and I will post up this drawing of this random girl for you to practice coloring. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Bye!